try to emphasize we're fighting crime in the digital world and catching the bad guys and stuff like that. The truth is, it probably runs in my veins because my father has been doing it for a long while, not cybersecurity, but IT. And so do you want to do damage or not? So it's still very fun to breach companies. It can be fun as a wire hacker. You don't have to be malicious because you're actually doing the same line of work. You're just maybe getting paid a bit less. Maybe the right answer is because I have a moral compass. Many things you can do to secure a phone, and the answer to all of that is pretty much keep it at a bare minimum.
And if you're just as passionate about innovation as we are, hit subscribe for the Recursive Podcast on your YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. We're everywhere.
Hi, Miroslav. Welcome to the Recursive Podcast. How are you?
Hello, thank you for the invitation. It's a huge pleasure to be here. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, today we'll talk about cybersecurity, but first I will start with one funny question. How would you describe your current job to a 5-year-old?
Oh, wow. To a 5-year-old. That would be quite interesting. I would probably say that let's say a 5-year-old has a maybe very good understanding of the physical security world. So I'll just probably try to go around and say that we're doing almost the same, just entirely digitalized, if that makes sense, if that would make sense to a 5-year-old, but yeah.
So it's mainly security.
I would try, maybe to sound cool, try to emphasize we're fighting crime in the digital world and catching the bad guys and stuff like that too. But yeah.
And could you go more into details for our audience? What specifically are you doing with Amatas?
Yes, of course. So with Amatas, I'm currently leading a cybersecurity and incident response team and also a security operations center. So what in sort of simpler terms that means is we have a team which is monitoring environments of our customers 24/7 for any sort of abnormalities that might occur, and they are acting on those and trying to prevent, incidents before they occur, essentially. And the cybersecurity incident response team is obviously maybe going to be a bit more of the focus for today, because that's where we're trying to react, and we're talking about post-incident response, and we're trying to bring the businesses back to life and sort of heal the damage that's been done, and basically get a company running as smoothly as possible and as quickly as possible back to how it originally was. Yeah.
And since we're now based in Bulgaria and we talk about the region, how has the cybersecurity landscape changed over the past couple of years within the region?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think in recent years, at least for, let's say, our region, the main sort of factor that has moved things around are the regulations that are being applied. I know it's not the most fun topic for a lot of my colleagues and for a lot of companies involved, but I think that's pretty much the one of the few things that's made a big change and a big push towards becoming more digitally secure. I think it's a good thing, but the sort of the sad part, or the part that at least I find isn't how things should be, is the fact that we are waiting for things to become mandatory to start acting on the issues. So we're waiting for the next regulation to come into place. We're looking at what exact date it's going to be into place so that we're well prepared for that audit, for that date, for that time to come. Whereas in a perfect world, which we're not living in, it would be the other way around. We would be doing it because that's the right thing to do, not because the government or our customer or someone else is requiring us to, and will fine us if we don't, basically. But yeah, that's how it is, at least for now. I think that has had the biggest impact. But obviously there are other factors contributing, which is we are sort of coming up to speed with some other more, I would say, more developed parts of the world in terms of cybersecurity, at least. And we're looking towards what they're doing and trying to copy it, because no one is trying to invent anything new. We basically have, I would say, we've already developed the strategies that we need to combat cybercrime. It's just a matter of finding the right partners, the right people, and starting to do so.
And in what specific verticals or cases we're better? You said Bulgaria is already up front with, for some specific parts. Where are we better compared to the other part of the world?
Okay. So I think we have a very good, I would say, for the current, let's say, landscape and current diversity and depth of education that we have, we're lucky to have amazing specialists in our country. And I do believe there are that some of the best minds are kept here and are working towards securing our digital future. And I'm talking about both private and public. I've met a lot of very, very good professionals. And I think the sort of technical level of a lot of my colleagues is, I would say, very, very high, very diverse, because in cybersecurity you have so many different things that you can specialize in. So I would say, in terms of the knowledge and know-how, we definitely are in the sort of right direction, because I'm working a lot with universities and interns, and I see that some parts of the education or some university are not doing the best job that can possibly be done. So I'm very surprised that the level of the technicality of the specialists is so high. So yeah, I think that's very good.
That's a great thing to know, that the talent pool is here.
Yeah, I do believe that.
Well, there is kind of a frightening statistic that in a couple of years, generally, Europe would have shortage on cybersecurity talents. So what should we do on that? Should we prepare more students in university starting from there? Or what's the key, in your opinion?
Well, so the key for me is to start at a younger age. And I'm seeing more and more of that. And I myself have tried to sort of get movements like that in place with the help of Amatas, of course. So we've had several programs where we're trying to partner up with universities, and quite recently we have hired quite a few people directly from universities as well. So we are trying to be the change that we want to see, and we're giving the young people the power to use the modern tools, to work on the incidents, and to basically respond and react to the cyber threats that are out there in the world. So I do believe that university is not enough. The businesses and the private sector needs to step in, and they need to give a chance to these young people, and that will make the difference. Although I think the shortage is inevitable, because it's just a question of demand and supply. So the demand is inevitably going to be higher and higher, especially as the landscape changes, and we're getting a lot of new sort of factors in that have never been on the table before. So we're now reaching an age which it's unprecedented, and I'm not only talking about AI because that's the big picture. I think there's also other factors, such as I don't foresee this in the next maybe 2 years, but let's say 4 to 7 or something like that. I would expect there to be a rise in quantum computing, because that's been a topic for quite a few years, but there are some breakthroughs that I'm monitoring. I know that they're not sort of finalized, and they don't have a generally working machine, at least publicly, but some sort of states or countries might do in their secret services at the moment, and we might not even know. So AI is something that would give you, let's say, more power. It would empower your actions, and it could make them easier, good or bad. But quantum computing would flip the entire table around. There would be a lot of preparation needs to be involved, because our entire sort of technology stacks need to be flipped around for everything to be secure again. So I think that would be a major change that everyone needs to start preparing for. I know that some companies in the US already have started preparing, but I think this is gradually going to shift to Europe and the rest of the world.
Yeah, you mentioned there is not much proactivity. So how can companies start doing what it's needed before in advance?
Well, the most important aspect, I would say, is there have been developments of quantum resistant algorithms that can be used. So I think that's the major issue there, is adoption of those, or preparation for adoption. Maybe not adopting it directly, but you need to be prepared.
Okay. So now going more into the details, without really mentioning any sensitive details, could you please give us an example for a cyber incident here in Bulgaria with a Bulgarian company? Something that any company could take as an example that could happen.
Mm-hmm. I'll just not to sort of disclose too much. I'll talk about how things generally work. It won't be an exact example, but the work that we do and where we're good at it is because we've seen so many and we worked so many that I can see the patterns forming, and I can talk about maybe that a bit more in depth. But generally speaking, a cybersecurity incident is really depends on how well prepared the attacker and the defender are, right? So if you would want to rob a bank and I give you a gun and you run across the street and try to do damage, you'll 99%, 99% of the cases you'll fail. You won't be successful. You'll get caught afterwards. But if I give you like a year to prepare, to meet the people, to meet the security guards, to start talking to the clerks, to monitor the shifts, to get their schedules, to become close with some of the people, maybe to bribe them. You have so many vectors that you can take. Maybe you can clone some of their cards. And you can use social engineering. There's so many different aspects that you can sort of exploit. And you have a substantial chance of success. And it's the same with cybersecurity incidents. So how well prepared is the attacker? If they're motivated, what information are you holding? How valuable it is to you, to them, to a third party, for reputational damage, etc. So it's very important what line of business you're in, what you're protecting. And it's very important if the attackers can prepare, the defenders can prepare as well. So it goes both ways. If you're well prepared before the incident, it will either be minor, it will be contained faster, there'll be less damage, or it will be reflected entirely and deflected entirely, and you won't have any issues. Although having perfect security and 100% protection is pretty much a myth, you would still need to give yourself the best survival chance and the best fighting chance. So in terms of what we see here locally, it's exactly the issue with the preparation part on the defender side. So a lot of the companies, they sort of say, we're in the business of manufacturing cars or maintaining cars or selling appliances or whatever. This is our main concern. This is our main business. We don't care about cybersecurity, so we don't really need to invest in that because we've been operating for 20 years. There's never been issues. Even if something happens with this computer, that machine, we'll still be able to sell our stuff and stuff like that. But so they're trying to just ignore the whole cybersecurity aspect, which is becoming harder and harder in today's competitive market and today's quick sales, deliveries, buys, etc., and goods. So the companies need to realize that in order to stay competitive and have that edge, they do need to invest in proactive measures. So yeah, companies are basically focused on what their main activity is, right? They don't want anything to distract them from their goals, their business goals, and that's why in such scenarios we are the sort of the people that you can contact and you can come into a partnership with, because we are specializing in the things that you don't want to be doing. Basically, we can be on the watchful side, and by we I mean not only Amatas. There's obviously loads of other cybersecurity companies, but you need to be aware that this is not just money thrown in the trash or preventive measures for something that is never going to happen to you. It's something that will happen to you as soon as a motivated attacker finds that you've turned a good profit this year, because these things are being monitored by the bad guys, and they only need to be successful once, right? It's sort of the analogy with football and goalkeepers. An attacker can be a good attacker if he scores 1 out of 20 hits, and a goalkeeper is bad if he misses only one into his net. So that's the same thing in the cybersecurity world as well, where if you miss one attack and they breach your systems, then you have a major issue, and you have the reputation damage. You have most of the time locally the ransoms as well. It can be for data hostage, or it can be for encrypted data. It can be for selling that data to third parties and other sort of threats like that they make. And in the end, you have to understand that this is the attackers are also a business, so they're operating as a business, and they have, let's say, the same channels as a normal business would. So they have their people, they have their processes, they have their profits, they have their margins. So they have their teams, recruiters. They're looking for good technical people. They're looking for people that can let's say, provide references, which is, for example, throwing your own company under the bus, give your own credentials. If they paid ransom, you get a percentage of that. So they are entirely business focused, which is, both good and bad. I mean, the good part is that although they're criminals, they are sort of most of the time willing to cooperate, and if you pay, they'll give you back what you need, and they'll follow the proper procedure that they've promised to. But that doesn't obviously mean always. I'm saying most cases, but they do have a reputation to hold, because if you get a cybersecurity breach or incident, you're most likely going to contact someone else to help you with that. And we have a very good understanding, and we are monitoring these groups, and we know who is dealing, correctly, who is being, as much as you can, as much as it is possible to be correct in this line of business. But if you start, asking for ransom for the same data 2, 3, 5 times, then that you on your next hit, you won't get paid. So you'll run out of business. And in their sort of Telegram channels, they're talking about customers, and customers are victims. So they're literally operating exactly like a business normally would, just with malicious intent.
Mm. And the bottom line is that every company needs a cyber protection. But what are the first steps? Like, not all the companies are the same, the businesses are different. What are the first steps?
Yeah. So I want to just put a little statement before answering that the attackers, they don't know, because businesses can be big or small, their budget's big or small, and a lot of companies are afraid that cybersecurity and cybersecurity consulting is very expensive. And actually we can loop back, because it's expensive due to demand and supply, because there's not a lot of people, and because it's quite, it takes quite a while to become proficient in understanding the complexity, for example, of a big company and defending it. And you have to understand a lot of aspects, both deeply technical and both business analytical and financial and etc. and risk management. And there's so many topics that you need to involve in order to have, good overall protection. So the attackers, they don't care and they don't know how much you spend on their cybersecurity. They don't care about your budget. And the most secure companies are not the ones that spend the most. More money poured into tools or personnel or processes doesn't mean better security intrinsically. So what you need to do is focus on the major sort of holes for your business. If it's depending on sector, you might need to follow regulation or not. But for example, what sort of turns around the tables a bit for me and makes me a bit happier is that we've been getting a lot of sort of requests and inquiries from businesses that are under, let's say, 50 people, some even under 15, which means that the industry is coming to terms with and accepting the fact that they need to do something, but they're not sure what exactly. And I don't think there's a golden rule. You need to do this, 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 and this. I think that it's very dependent on what your business does. Because, for example, a store that sells, ovens and whatnot and computers and stuff like that, their main goal is for you to be able to pay when you go to the till. They don't, if they have an incident and with something else in the back, that's probably fine as long as they can take your money and give you an appliance. But if you're a fintech business, your crown jewels are entirely at a different place. So you need to be defending different sectors of your business with different means. So regardless of size, I don't think there's a one that fits all solution. That's why I would say it's quite complex and there's no standard approach. And that's why it takes quite a few years for professionals to have that experience, to have seen different approaches, to see different companies, how they operate and stuff like that. And then you can sort of link good security with what exactly needs to be secured for the optimum budget, because you can always spend more and get fancier tools, better tools, or a view into, let's say, deep dark web, threat intelligence and stuff like that, which I'm not saying is not necessary. Depending on your business and business size and line of work, it might be, but for most companies it's not. It's like a luxury, right? So you can live with it, you can live without it. And that's why for companies that are confused by, let's say, seeing a lot of these breaches, maybe some of them are afraid. I know that some of them are afraid that it might get to them. They're not sure, because in the end, it's not your job to know if everything is secure from a cybersecurity standpoint. Your job was, or your expertise was in something entirely different. So that my advice would definitely be contact professionals or try and build an internal team, but understand that an internal team comes with major challenges.
But still, how important is the training of the employees in order just to detect the first signs of an incident and then
training employees is quite important. We at Amatas focus and provide that as a service as well, and that's a key sort of aspect of our portfolio, because we've identified that issue that where majority of the incidents come through people basically, but interactions with people, let's say, and they come through not exactly, technical, let's say, how should I put this, technical vulnerabilities, or but more like misconfigurations or consequences of people's actions, let's put it that way. And that's why training is so important. And training, let's split this into two. There's your let's say non-tech savvy people that are doing all the other work apart from IT and cybersec in a company. Maybe they have a slightly lesser understanding of how exactly everything works in terms of IT, but that we found that it helps to educate everyone, because it can be helpful in your personal life as well, apart from your business sort of life. Because what happens is when you log off your machine after you finish work, you most likely log on to your phone or to your computer back at home, and you're still doing, even if it's social media or other line of work or whatever, you're still interacting with the IT/cybersecurity world, because we're at this point in time where if you don't, you're pretty much thrown to the side. So it's very important to be educated, not only to defend your workplace, but to defend your own and your identity. And I want to speak about the identity crisis as well, but maybe we'll do that in a bit. But yeah, so, and that's the part where we educate the people, and the part where we educate the professionals is also a big sort of a big thing in this day and age, because we're trying to transition a bit from IT to IT and cybersecurity working together and actually being one thing, with not in terms of, for example, budget, because that's bad, and that's also a point I want to make, that a lot of companies are sort of doing a budget for IT, and cybersecurity is a very small part of that. It's usually better for them to be separate, so that you know exactly what's going to one, what's going to other, what you expect from one, and what you're expecting from the other. But for sure, we have been trying to educate IT professionals on the correct way to think about how to secure their environment as well. Because for the most part, not so much in larger corporations, but for example, like SMEs, they tend to focus on getting things running and ensuring availability. So if you have availability, that's pretty much 90% of what they focus on, because that's what management cares about, right? They care about, is the system running? Can people use it? Can customers use it? Can managers use it? Yes, then that's fine. And they're focusing all their budget on redundancy and stuff like that, which is a good thing, but it's not the full picture, right? So yeah, I would say educating both is very important. In fact, specifically in my team and my line of work, one of the first things that we do is educate my employees on privacy and anonymity online, which is, I think, a key aspect, not only for them to protect Amatas, but for them to protect themselves when they even if they leave the company. I don't care. I just want them to be aware of how to stay anonymous, how to protect their identities, because we are coming to a day and age where AI is going to bring a large identity crisis, I think. And I think we are already sort of at the first steps of that issue. But what I mean by that is, with all of the deepfakes and all of the quick sort of ways that AI can process information, it's going to create a big issue, because even right now, for example, let's say we are educating people on how to recognize a phishing email or how to recognize a threat or things like that. But with artificial intelligence, if, for example, I've been communicating with you via email for the last 5 years and my account is compromised, then I have your sort of, let's say, the language that you use in your emails, how you form them, how you phrase your words, how you phrase your sentences, how you share data files, where do you attach them? Is it, a platform, something else? So, AI can pretty much interact in a much more, in a much closer way to how you would naturally interact. And we have been using that to sort of create new phishing and new emails and new content which is internal to us, so which emulates one of your coworkers' account being compromised, and he's pretty much using the natural language that he would use. It's not like an external, which is very obvious and stuff like that, because I've seen the phishing example that most of our colleagues give in the trainings, that they provide something that you would see a mile away. But now with AI and with deepfakes, that's that boundary, and it's going to be a very thin line between real and fake. And they are trying to put regulations on that, on those topics as well. But I think they are, even if they do, you can still host a lot of models offline if you're motivated, again, if you're well prepared. There's pretty much going to be very hard to stop. And we've been experimenting with, for example, open models, which you can pay for and download from deep dark web, stuff like that, where they're pretty much unhinged. You can ask them anything, and they respond. And even if with the ones that are public, like ChatGPT, Gemini, etc., especially in the beginning, there were a lot of workarounds. For example, can you tell me how to do this? And it wouldn't tell you because it's prohibited by its boundaries. But if you tell it, what should I avoid? And it gives you the exact examples. So it just gives you access to information that it would usually be much harder to get in some scenarios. And I encourage everyone that hasn't tried it to go online and try to make a deepfake version of themselves, because they'll be very surprised. There was, I think 2 months ago, there was in New Zealand, a member of parliament brought up a picture of herself. It was a lady that was portrayed naked, which was a deep fake, and she was trying to raise attention that they need to regulate this somehow in their country. But it's not only about their country, it's about the entire world. Right?
But that's the thing with regulations, they always come after. So it's a bit too late.
Well, yeah, that's the issue I think that we're facing, and even if they come too late, at least they'll be there at some point. Okay, but if you have the regulation, the regulation can be on what's public. You can still load these models. You can host them on your behalf, on your computer, on your servers, and you can still be harmful. So that's not going to disappear if we get the regulations in place. The general public would be, let's say, they would have a harder time accessing that, but a motivated person can still find the right way to do it.
And what are the most frequent cyber attacks that you're encountering right now?
So most frequent, well, surely the most frequent would be phishing emails, because you can send as much of them as you want. They don't need to be successful. You can spend as much time on it as you want. And it's the same with the bank analogy. If you spend more time, you might be more successful. But in general, that's the most common, but I wouldn't say it's the most common at succeeding. It's just the most common because it's the easiest to do, right? It's the easiest to just type up an email and attach your malicious link or whatever. And there are now in the let's say in the markets, there are ways that you can hire software or you can buy software, even if you don't really understand what you're doing. There are companies that will help you out with processing your victims, let's say. So even people that are not very tech savvy, you can get, as long as you pay the right amount, you can get support for victims, or you can even give information, obviously pay and demand that they be breached. So that's quite a big part of it. I think at least from sort of our here region, the ones that we've dealt with, the most damaging ones have been the supply chain attacks. Mm-hmm. And I think there's very good reasoning behind that, because in order to succeed in business, what you need, or well, not need, but what is a very good thing to have, is a very good partner, right? A stable, solid partner that helps you with, will be your deliveries, or will be with I don't know, your HR or whatever. But having good partner feels good. You had this relationship, say, for 10 years, you trust them, you've given them access, they're integrated into your process, maybe you share the same office and network. So, but you don't share the same cybersecurity budget or measures or, IT, fully IT infrastructure. So, but you've trusted them with part of your business or part of your process. So those are usually the most damaging because they already have that trust between them. And when one is compromised, the other just goes down very quickly as well. So I think those are the most, I wouldn't say the most common, but they are common. And they are, let's say, a gold mine for attackers because it's the story of two rabbits with a single bullet. Mm-hmm. The others that are very common are data exfiltration, which leads to asking for money for ransom after that in order to keep the data offline or delete it, which we've seen quite a few times now. And the obvious one is ransomware, where they just encrypt the data and as well ransom related, but you don't even have the data at your sort of side. And with the data, when they only steal without encrypting, we've seen some scenarios where companies pay several times in order for the data to be removed. Mm-hmm. So you never get guarantees. We never advise anyone to pay any ransom and to communicate with these cyber groups. But in some scenarios, if you don't, it's pretty much going to be the end of the business. So, and that's actually the reason why, because I've seen some statements from the U.S. cybersecurity agencies. And they say they have actually the power and the means to shut these websites down, which are related to ransom groups. However, if they do so, some businesses would just cease to exist because without paying the ransom, they would need to shut down and close the doors, and that's it. And some of these businesses are hospitals and schools and stuff like that, and government-controlled or government-owned, partially, fully, etc. So it's not only private but public sector that we're dealing with. I remember during one of the biggest sort of, let's say, hospital-related cybersecurity incidents I was living in Scotland, and it happened to their health security system, to the NHS. And this was devastating because people were going for medical checkups, for chemotherapy, for stuff like that. They didn't even know who these people were, what the treatments that had previously been done to them were. And there were consequences with people's lives. So it was no longer, just money and sort of business. It was people's lives, which is why these ransomware and extortion groups still get to keep the way they operate. And yeah, this is something that we've seen here in Bulgaria as well, and in the region. So they won't stop just because it's a school or a hospital. There's no morals involved. So, yeah.
Would you say that would be one of the main challenges in the next 2 to 3 years? Let's say it's difficult to predict what would happen in 5 years time period, but what would be the main challenge for us to tackle the cybersecurity attacks?
Yeah. I think the main one would definitely be somehow related to the identity crisis, because it would be much easier to present yourself as someone else, or to steal people's identities, or to have fake identities as much as you want, and as diverse as you like. So I think that is going to be, at least in my eyes, the biggest issue, because the other issues that we've had them for the previous 5 to 10 years as well. I think this is the new one. So the previous issues we're already aware of. We're trying to tackle them. We're succeeding to some extent. We're failing in other places, but we know the process. We know what we're doing. But with with the identity crisis. I think that is going to be something entirely new. So yeah.
And what's the one misconception about cybersecurity that you have heard from someone that really frustrates you the most?
Okay, so I'm going to split that up because there's something that really, really frustrates me, which is, I think, quite local here for Eastern Europe, where companies are under the impression that they're doing quite well on their own because they've not had any breaches. And there's the mentality that I can deal with this on my own, and I've been dealing this quite well, so I don't need you. So after, let's say, 1 or 2 conversations, I tell them what they've been doing wrong, and they think, oh yeah, well, this is quite easy, we'll tackle that. And that's something that annoys me because it's not as simple as people think it is. And eventually, I've seen so many cases where I've had conversations with businesses. They've declined whatever, we've tried to offer because it's not going to happen. Well, I don't know if they're exactly thinking it's not going to happen to me, but maybe they're thinking, this is too much money to invest just as a proactive measure to something that might or might not happen. We don't even know what the percentage chance risk is because they didn't even, or they can't perhaps make the accurate risk assessment for themselves. So that mentality of, oh, I'm doing quite well on my own. I don't need you guys. Don't need anyone else. I'll just deal with everything at once, which is honestly for startups, like for 5 to 10 people, that's mostly fine. You get a few people doing a lot of different jobs, but when you get to like say 30 to 50 plus, you definitely need a helping hand. And for bigger businesses, it's a lot of the times it's, for example, during mergers, acquisitions, and stuff like that, we see a lot of issues come up because, for example, it's very hard to integrate a company that has been designing product for 10 years or working on a product for 10 years, and they have their freedom of the developers. They do whatever they want, or their testers or whatever. And suddenly they need to adhere to new policies, and they start feeling that they don't need to because they've been working quite well for the past X amount of years. So that's very annoying to deal with because usually even when management sort of supports the decision, let's say, to move to a more secure environment, they face a lot of pushback from their people, from the people that they've worked with, and people hate change. That's the major issue, maybe, which is nothing to do with me, and I love change, and that's why maybe I find that exactly annoying, because what we are doing and what sort of how my career ended up in this direction is because I tried a lot of different aspects of cybersecurity, and some of them I thought were quite mundane. Not exactly, but you could always put them into the right sort of frame and of processes, and they'll be working fine. And you don't really see changes in the major changes in the products and how things work. Whereas in incident response, it's every day is absolutely nothing like the previous one. Every sort of not only cybersecurity incident in company, but in the security operations center, we monitor for anomalies. Every anomaly is quite different as well. Every sort of virus attack, phishing is a bit different. You need to always try to stay on top. And it's just so diverse, and there's so many things changing all the time, and there's so many new things that I think this is what sort of steered my career and my choices towards doing this. And yeah, there's going back to the original question, when there's people for, let's say, 10 years in a company, they become like the champions, that they know everything, have access to everything. And those people are actually, from a cybersecurity standpoint, the worst people to have in your company, because not only are they most likely a single point of failure for some of your systems, they also have a lot of access. So if they get compromised, might not be a good thing. They've been there for so long that they might be using their personal machines or using something else entirely from the business equipment, just because they found that during their period, that's the best way to do things. So they've ended up, say, making decisions that even the business might not be aware of, that might be exposing them to additional risk. We have situations where, for example, it was quite a substantial breach which led to a lot of customer data being leaked, and on a very big company abroad. And what exactly had happened is that one of their systems, which is, let's say, very well secured, was online cloud platform. So you log in to to a website somewhere in the cloud, and you access your, let's say, work files and data from there. However, when you're using it from your work computer, that's fine because that's secured in let's say X amount of ways. But one of the people there decided that they want to log in a couple of times from their own device back at home, which is not secured the same way. Their own device back at home got breached, and accounts and passwords got leaked from that one. And from there on, it was a question of sort of waiting for the right moment to strike, stealing the correct session, and gaining access to the entire platform. And that's a very sort of common issue because you can't really, well, you can, but a lot of the companies give the flexibility for you to log in from wherever you like, which is very, very bad for the business. But the market sort of started to demand it. People are wanting more flexibility in terms of working from home, working from somewhere else, working from when they're on vacation. And you're trying to find them where on vacation as well as a manager or boss. So that's that's a sort of natural consequence, but it's a very, very bad practice for the business. Yeah.
Okay. Miroslav, thank you very much for the interesting conversation. Is there something as last words you want to share that I haven't asked you and you think it's interesting and important to share?
Maybe what I would like to share is that for the listeners of the podcast, the most important thing from everything that we've discussed is when they have an issue, when they have a cybersecurity incident, the most important first steps are to contact professionals if they don't have ones on site. It doesn't matter who they are, but you need help because there's so many specific steps that you need to take that you'll 99.5% get it wrong. You'll wipe out half the evidence which can be used in your sort of to your, let's say, advantage and for your quick recovery. So that's probably the most important thing. I can talk all day long about, what measures you can take, how you can implement them, what is the most cost effective, but that doesn't really matter because once you have a cybersecurity incident, you need to act very fast and you need to act very precise.
And if you're just as passionate about innovation as we are, hit subscribe for the Recursive Podcast on your YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. We're everywhere.